Co-founder of Giants Live, the largest strongman event on planet Earth, with the exception of World's Strongest Man, where he is the tournament director. He is a GB bobsleigh Olympian. Colin BRYCE, welcome to Making Gains, sir.
Well, hey, can we cue like a massive crowd?
They are ready to go.
Yeah. Bring my kids in. Yeah.
How should I have introduced you, by the way?
There's a lot of things, a lot of people introduce me. But yeah, that was very nice. Thank you, Radzi. Yeah, and of course, you're just, super fan, as you get called previously. Which is
world's smallest fan, it says in the Giants Live programme.
I know, but a very strong man indeed. Nearly an Olympian.
Yeah, let's contextualise that. I'm a failed skeleton bobsleigh athlete.
Nearly a finalist in Gladiators.
10 years ago and it still hurts.
Many things. Obviously brilliant at dancing on ice.
Ooh, even too soon.
Is that too soon? Right. Dude, you don't want to win that anyway.
Who cares? Who cares about winning in life?
It's like a badge of dishonour. I wouldn't want that one. It's more macho.
The reason I'm genuinely pumped to speak to you is you are one of the most respected voices in the strength community.
There's only about one. That's me. What are you on about? Me and Danny Wallace.
It's a flat pyramid, but you are at the top of it.
Okay, thank you.
So let's talk about strength. What does actually strongman mean to you? Because it goes way back to your childhood.
Yes. It means a mortgage getting paid. Yeah. I mean, it's strongman something that, I was brought up around. I guess the original strongman in many ways was, of course it comes from many countries, but Highland Games. So my dad was, donned a kilt every weekend and was one of the heavies, as they were known. Jeff Capes, guys like that, he used to battle with every weekend. Of course, back in the old days when there was only a couple of channels on telly, Capes, he was about as famous as you got, There was no Insta stars back then. Big Capes, right. was on after the Queen on Christmas Day, winning World's Strongest Man. So yeah, it was great being around those guys. And, I guess I always wanted to be a bit of a strong dude too. And you know what? And the one thing that I loved was someone like Capesy, because he was a proper giant. He was in a time when 6'6" and 25 stone was big,
Yeah, imagine that.
They are bigger now, genuinely, but that would probably be the smallest guy in the World's Strongest Man final now. So,
which is crazy. That is crazy.
It is crazy, yeah. But it's just something magnetic about. You don't even need to be wildly exciting or even be able to speak. If you're just that big, it's just sort of like a wonder of the world just to kind of be around somewhere like that and sort of get pulled around by their gravity. It's like, and it's still to this day, I still get tickled by big Hafthor. Let's not talk about that now. No, it tickles me just to see when you walk in. When we go to Leeds. And I won't say the brand of the hotel, not that people will swarm us because we don't get that treatment. But and obviously when you walk into the foyer and there's Hafthor standing at basically 7 foot, with 32 stone with abdominals, and people are just like gawking up at him, and it's an amazing wonder to see a man that big.
The thing is, at that point, Brad Pitt could genuinely walk in and no one would have seen him. No one would have even clocked him, because you are seeing a living giant.
Well, it was quite funny. Eddie went in for...
Eddie Hall, this is.
Yeah, the Beast, thank you, yeah. When World's Strongest Man went in 2017, let's give him his dues. He went in to do some interview for I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Did he?
And yeah, he did. Well, have you done one of those as well, have you?
I haven't. I'd love to have had.
Okay. Well, Ed went in to do it, and he didn't really want to do it. I mean, Ed getting starved for a month in the jungle is a terrible idea, He has 6 or 7 meals a day. I don't know what Eddie was thinking, but they invited him down. They wanted him. And he... basically, the woman said afterwards, some seasoned producer type, I've never asked any star for anything, a photo, but would you be so kind as just to lift me up so I can have a photo? Of course, the Beast obliged and threw her over her head, and she went gooey in his arms and squealed, and it was great. Yeah. So I mean, it's even someone like that gets kind of blown away by the size.
I mean, and at his biggest, he was just gargantuan. Eddie Hall is 6'3", but the thickest and widest man I think I've ever seen.
So I remember something that really stuck in my mind I want to say, I'm going to say a name that's like not a photographer at all, but it's like, I think it was Annie Leibovitz or one of these people. It's probably like a singing artist or something, but I seem to remember it was on a front cover of the Times, or Time even magazine, and it was just a picture of Tyson's neck, but he was facing the other way, but there was no one else in the world it could be when he was at the height of his power. When I was a kid in America, and I remember just thinking in awe, seeing what a bull he looked. And it said 20 inches, you know, just at the bottom of the Time magazine. Eddie Hall, I taped his neck at 26 inches at his biggest. 26 inches.
My waist is 28. His neck is wider, almost as wide as my waist.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That's unbelievable.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It doesn't look ridiculous either. Well, it does look ridiculous to most people, probably, but it just shows you what a cranium he has as well. He's a proper massive skeleton on him, you know. I mean, Ed's a bit. My favourite one. You want to talk inches? Talk the full 13 inches of Mark Felix, and I'm talking wingspan on his hands. I mean, that dude he's yeah. If you have a wingspan on hands, but yeah.
His hands are unbelievable. When you shake his hand, it's like shaking hands with a bunch of bananas.
Yeah,
it is up. Okay, we've mentioned a few names there, from Capes up to Eddie the Beast. Strongest ever. Who do you think is the strongest human that ever lived?
Wow, that's different eras. It's a funny one. It's like is Usain Bolt the fastest man who ever lived? Well, obviously he is. He ran the fastest time, but. Yeah, but there's always different conditions, mondo tracks and spikes and training and nutrition and blah, 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 blah. In fact, I read some report that Jesse Owens, stride for stride, were to be taken out of Cinder's track and put on, whatever, was 1 yard behind him. That's what it would equate to now. So it's quite extraordinary that Owens was... So you really have to sort of put it into a calculator, and I guess if I was to take any bias out of my thoughts, because it's awful easy to sort of, shout someone who I want to shout. Here's my pH test. If you were trapped under a car and you were about to die, who the hell would you want to come at that moment in time? Because this isn't... Forget how much he lifted this off the floor. Yeah, if you put a few straps and wraps and cut it with a pair of scissors at the right time and he flew up, There's a lot of hocus pocus. And by the way, I'm not talking about like Eddie Hall's deadlift, which was one of the true, genuine feats of strength. Would you want Eddie Hall to come and grab you up? Yeah, maybe. To be honest, if I wanted anyone, it would probably be Brian Shaw. If I'm absolutely truthful, before he had his first bicep injury, when he just had that unbelievable mass, 6'8", 440 pounds, and he was a dunking basketball type guy. Either him or Hafthor, who has the sort of berserker gene, those are the two guys that they would just, if there was no handhold, they'd just dig their fingers into the metal. They're just terrifying. Forget what someone's lifted. I don't care what you've done anywhere in the world, in any competition. Yeah.
What does it take to be strong? Because when you're talking about lifting a car, you're not talking about it being perfectly balanced or having the best grip. You're talking about out and out brute strength, ability to move an object.
I mean, the first strongman contest I had with my brother would have been in Scotland. Can you lift that stone? No, you lift it. And that's the beauty of strongman. And I quite like the intelligence factor of meeting an object and having to overcome it, having never seen it before. There's a certain beauty in that that you just don't have in things like powerlifting and even weightlifting. The beauty of weightlifting is the sheer absolute perfection of it and the theatre of one after another till the final lift, and hopefully it all comes down to that, and then boom, that's pure theatre. But strongman has to have out of your comfort zone movement, buck wild, raw power, and that's great. And to be honest, if you overtrain these things, then it starts to look a bit like that,
So if you were to take the strongest features of anybody you know or have seen and put them together to make the ultimate physique, what have we got? Let's start with arms.
So we'll start with hands. We'll start with Felix's 13 inches.
Yes.
I was such a cheap one. I couldn't resist. Sorry. But no, I mean, you genuinely would. Who wouldn't want Felix's grip? It's like, he slaps that paw and you crush your head.
I actually genuinely think he could crush my skull.
Have you ever asked Felix to clap his hand? I'm saying hand singular. He can clap two hands. Just slaps his fingers off his palms. Dang, dang, dang. Makes a proper snapping noise. It's great. Try it.
There is nothing.
He can go snap, snaps. He can, like he's clapping with two. That's amazing. Yeah, he can get that much whip on his fingers. So okay. Forearm power, that would be proper geeky, so we'll leave that one. That kind of goes with hands. I guess we go to shoulders next, right?
Okay.
Zadrunas. How can you look past Zadrunas?
What about
Cave and
Biby?
Chasma, I would say. Oh God, the unknown quantity, Biby. I'm going to have to say this. Biby has to produce it before we put him in that category.
Okay, but he's in the conversation.
Yeah, Iron Biby is. I think Iron Biby's just about the most special person I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, there he was at 24, having done a couple of strongman competitions, came to Manchester, and even like he did a 400 pounds into sort of, he calls it a flip. It's not quite a flip, it's a flick flack. And I know you're a sort of gymnast, you'll get upset. Let's call it a flip anyway. After he won an event, no experience, and he took the mic and with the ease of a president. Just charmed the crowd. He's not in his own language. I mean, it's something about that guy that I'd like him to sort of take up the head of the UN or something,
And everyone listened to him because they have to.
Well, you know the story about his about I said, who's the strongest man you've ever met, Biby? Because you look at him, it's like the giant cuckoo in the nest. I mean, his brothers are strong, but Biby sticks
Not
out.
on his level.
They're like strong and normal weight. They're like you. I mean, sort of pound for pound, they're pretty damn strong. But then if you look at Biby and he's like, all right, who ate all the food at breakfast? Come on, Biby, own up. He's just a monster. But he said, oh, there's one man. I said, who's this man? He went, well, I never met him, but I've just heard stories. I thought, God, I love this country, but I've got to go to Burkina Faso, dig these guys out of the valleys and woods. He went, oh, he's my great granddad. I said, oh, right. And what did he do? I thought maybe lifted things up from a mine and some legendary lifts. He went, he was the king. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, if you're going to be the strongest, you deserve to be the king. Maybe not in today's world, but in my mind, anyway.
So we've got Felix's hands, Big Z's shoulders, arms. Can we say arms?
Arms. Yeah, we can say arms. As in, we're just talking about aesthetic beauty or power. Well, you pull and push. I mean, they're that sort of antagonistic muscles, aren't they? So you kind of your biceps pull with your upper back, and your triceps push with your chest. So they're kind of different. I certainly wouldn't mind Larry Wheels just for a look. He's right. Ripped, man. He looks $1 million. I look like $1 million lira. If that. He's defunct and useless, but he really is. He's a sex machine, isn't he? He's got something.
Chest.
Oh wow. See, I would go with probably off the cuff Eddie Hall. I believe Eddie Hall would take the world record in bench.
Really? Off Julius Maddox?
Yeah, well, I've been around Julius Maddox. I thought he was a proper dude. It is one of, you got to say, of all the movements anyone does, that's like Monday night bench. That's the first thing you learn, when you start going down any kind of decent gym, and then maybe we try Tuesday bench as well, and Wednesday, legs for eventually a couple of years later can start to, obviously you still haven't learned that lesson, Radz, but
more meat on a vegan's plate than these legs.
Yeah, that's just Radzi's knees are like a knot in a flea's penis. It's a wee knobbly one. No, I'm joking. I've never seen your legs actually. So yeah, anyway, it's what are we talking about? Who are we on?
You've got my enormous legs.
Your enormous legs, your wheels. Eddie's chest and pressing power is just magnificent to watch.
Statically, I've never seen anything like that. Not in the flesh.
Yeah. Funny enough, Eddie's. I asked him who he thought the strongest ever. I thought, wow, you're schooled, Eddie. You know your stuff. He said, Louis Cyr.
Okay. Well, old school French.
Old school. Well, French Canadian to be exact.
Oh right. Okay.
You ever see pictures of him? There's touches of the Biby about him. It looks like who ate all the pies. But not in a bad way. He's just a beast. in 18. In fact, he came over here in 18. He did a couple of tours, but he actually did the Royal Albert and did some sort of weird. I mean, I don't know how this exactly rocked the crowds back then, but he basically sort of picked up a dumbbell that weighed. I don't know. I think it was close to about 90 kilos or something, and then went down on 2 knees. It was a 2-kneed repetition press, and I did like 8 or 9 reps with it. It was just. But so instead of doing that old funky kind of weird thing where they did the double sideways bend, he just banged out reps on his knees to show he could do it without his legs even.
Oh wow!
I was like, wow, that's some. Back when people drank stout and smoked fags for protein.
For pre-workout.
For pre-workout. I mean, I still do, but
just without the workout.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Strongest back.
Strongest back. How about I chuck it to you? Who are you going to go for? Or Eddie Hall.
See, for me, it goes to Ed for strongest back.
How can you even remotely say anybody else? I mean, Benny Magnuson. Yeah, see, okay, this is one thing that I realised back in about 07, actually, 07. If you stop doing this 3 lift nonsense and you actually allow basically a ladder, you set a ladder of weights that go up, let's call it 5 lifts to the world record.
Right.
If you do that, and you allow people to go out and lift 4 or 5 times, now, often the best guys choose not to do that. But basically, you take all of the thought process out of their head and you say, we're opening on a deadlift at 400 kilos. That's your opening. You've got no option. You're in or you're out. And then it goes 425, 450, 475, 500. All the thought process is taken out, and you don't get trapped in this nonsense 3 lifts thing. Who came up with 3 lifts? It's a sort of arbitrary nonsense.
So you're talking about powerlifting 3 lifts?
But it's set up to be theatre. And it is theatre, but it doesn't get maximum lifts, especially if you go, it's as dull as dishwater as well. You go all the way up to one guy, and then you have to go right back down to the weights, and everyone's trying to figure it out. It's like a chessboard of nonsense. You don't know what's going on unless you've got unbelievable commentary in your ear. So I kind of dawned on me, if we want big crowds, you just have this rising ladder. And actually, if you think about it, Benny Magnuson pulled 460 raw. Did he ever try 500?
Right.
So the one thing that Eddie Hall in one day beat the world record in a lift that people have been doing competitively for 115 years, properly. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of men have pulled deadlifts. In fact, in the modern era included now, millions and millions have pulled deadlifts.
Yeah. People
know what a 9-inch Olympic bar is, and they know what it's like to pick 100 kilos off the floor in most gyms in the world. But if you watch the way Benny Magnuson pulled that 460, of course Eddie had straps, and that obviously aided. Takes out the grip element a little bit, so you can relax your arms. Gives you an extra, let's call it an extra centimetre of relaxation, so you're not tightening. But I mean, what Eddie did was about 8% on the world record. It'd be like someone had, this is ridiculous. But if it had the world record been 10 seconds and 100 meters, someone running 9.2. I mean, he just like annihilated it. But unlike the 100 meters, everyone doesn't go full maximal every time. You are limited by the lifts you choose. Now, people will turn and say, but then you're picking their lifts. Well, yeah, I'm picking their lifts. That's right. Oh. And it's set up in really from the top man. Let's not even pretend and lie. I'm not catering to the bottom guy. I'm catering to absolutely wowing an audience and hopefully squeezing the greatest performance out of someone in front of a massive crowd. And does it work? Does it work? Does it work?
It does.
Biggest ever Olympic crowd was in London. 7,000 people turned up to watch you, Radzi, warm them up. You were the warm-up guy, and I was the BBC commentator. First time, second time we met, maybe I can't remember. You were in your like ice cream suit.
I was. The one
most
suit.
Impressed with you.
The one suit just kept doing it.
it was at a time when you only had one suit.
Correct.
You weren't dancing on ice with all those snappy ones. No, man, you were rocking the house. So you kept me entertained in between my 55 stints on BBC Interactive. But point being is what is my point, Radzi? Help me here. I'm losing my plot.
I think you're talking about theatre being different to performance, but you're trying to add theatre 2 performance. So with
it was my boast. I was boasting. That's why I was in the middle of a boast and I forgot I was boasting. Anyway, 7,000 was there. We had 12,000 capacity. Boom. Biggest crowd ever in any strength competition. Why? Because it's set up clever. I mean, it didn't take that much to think about it. Let's just get the best performance. Let's give him a chance at 500. He actually only did 3 lifts on the night, might add.
What's crazy about that is I was in the crowd that night and I paid 50 quid to watch a man stand up. And it was worth every penny. It was so good.
You said to me many times, though, had he failed that would have been a disaster, wouldn't it? Because it had massively overrun.
It would have been just the dampest of damp squibs. You'd say fair play, but I cannot tell you the walk from the curtain to the bar that he did, and then the crowd go berserk, and then he asked the crowd to quieten down, and then he goes for it. And that moment there, I've seen many people deadlift, I've seen many people lift stuff, but that is etched into my memory. That was so special, and we've already seen him speed rep essentially 465, I think it was, but all of a sudden this is golf. You think, hang on, I'm doubting it, I'm seeing it now. One chance, one crack at the whip, and I got to witness sports history. The man did it one day, one time, one opportunity, and he made history.
500 kilograms.
He's asking for quiet now, wants everybody to quiet, and he's going to rip it. Now he wants it up. Please read it. Here we go.
500 kilograms. There's Jerry Pritchett. It's going through his head now. A joint world record holder along with Eddie and Benny Magnusson at 465. This, though, 35 kilograms above that. Eddie's an explosive lifter. If he's going to do it, he's going to do it just as quickly as he can. See his legs almost shaking with adrenaline now. It's amazing. The 4 today, only 3 men in history managed 1,000 pounds. 4 with Jerry Pritchett earlier. Now we're looking at 1,100. Well, this is it.
This is a quantum leap forward if he were to do it. It's been whispered about, but it's going up.
And it's staying up.
And staying, he's done it. He's got the down signal.
Eddie Hall would not let that go, and I think maybe he should have.
This is Hall looking a little worried, but it's just the pressure on his body there.
The nosebleed, Colin. Now that's to do with...
Well, it's just very thin blood vessels, and when you're holding your breath that long, pulling such a heavy weight.
He made history. It was a privilege to watch.
I'd been waiting for Eddie Hall kind of all my life, and the moment I saw him on telly, and he was on like one of the lower division shows. He says cheekily of his rivals. He'd actually texted me and texted yours. Hey, check out channel whatever. Wait till you see what we've got. So I turned on the channel. Actually, I was actually watching it already, but I sent him a text back saying, "How far down the Sky Zapper have I got to go to get to it?" That's my exact message. Whatever. F you, Colin. And I watched him. I thought, oh my! I was watching him already. This guy's unbelievable. The beast. Where's he been? Finally, someone who doesn't just go meekly, well, I hope to do my best. Right. But there's many other good guys here. Beastie, I'm going to win. I'm the greatest. I thought, I don't care if he isn't the greatest, but I love it. This is fantastic, and he is winning. And then at the end of the show, I sent this. We shan't mention his name. By the way, you got his number, please? And he just wrote back again, F you. I think we've texted ever since, actually, because obviously I had Eddie's number in about 10 minutes and we were chatting away.
Okay.
And I knew he was going to be awesome. I just knew Ed was like he's an incredible mind, Eddie, as well. He's brilliantly, he's brilliant. He absorbs knowledge when he needs to, and he'll go to any length to try anything to try and get towards a goal. He's a terrifyingly driven man, and I really didn't think he would do that 500.
Did you not?
No, I didn't even really want him to do it. I thought, you know what I saw? I thought, look at all these people. Look at all that money. If we can only do this for 2 or 3 more years, come on, Ed, get it off the floor and then kind of struggle around your shins. He's got it. Oh no, that's it. We spent a year of our lives filling this up, and it was like a sort of it was like the longest foreplay session ever, you know. And then that's it then. That's it.
Okay, I want to go back to Eddie, but just to finish off the sequence of strongest physique, strongest legs.
Wheels of steel. Strongest legs.
Because I actually can't call this one.
These are the strongest legs right here. We got to give Kazma something, or he'll beat me up. Yeah.
You wouldn't go Ray Williams out of interest.
I would go Ray Williams. I said it absolutely. Yeah, sorry. Even Kaz would. Kaz was so magnificent. It was hard to say. Kaz has to be put up there as not. He didn't necessarily have in all history the best, but Kaz is going to be up there. Let me just say that.
Yeah, I actually think I'm the strongest man who ever lived.
Well, there was one guy that was a little bit stronger than Kaz in 80.
Come on! Damn it!
And Kaz in 82. Probably the strongest man in the history of the world. Kaz in 81. That's my take on it.
Kaz Mundo, he deserves it. Anyone who had all those world powerlifting titles, world records at the same time, 3 times world's strongest man, biggest points winner in history, deserves his due.
To me, he's the strongest of all time. For me, personally, I put Kaz up there right at the very top because it's difficult to compare eras, but I will give it to Kaz and what he did. For me, it's the Jesse Owens effect. We can look at Jesse Owens, Carl Lewis, Usain Bolt, but in terms of what Kaz did in that era, with the fact that it wasn't even close to professional, to dominate in so many sports. Plus,
he was professional. He was the same mindset as Eddie.
Right.
There was no off switch, and it was 24 hours a day. He was going to win and win. He wanted to absolutely hammer everybody, and only then would he maybe get a hint of pleasure in life. I mean, he was an obsessive man. Worst thing that ever happened to him, poor guys, truth is they basically gave old Kaz the elbow. Because he won 3 years in a row, biggest points win in history, and they thought it was becoming a tired story. Of course, Kaz didn't come back until 1989. He had from 80, what was it? 80, to it's like 80. Oh my God! What years did Kaz win? 80, 81, and 82, right?
87. He came
no, was it 87? I thought he came back in 89. No, 88. Hungary, boy. This is we're bringing the pants off of people with this one. Yeah, yeah. 88. I think. That's
right.
He was shouting John Paul was a paper champion. And he was just a little past it. He wasn't, he didn't have just that ludicrous wild power. And also, once you start getting injuries, you must know this, maybe you haven't had any real injuries. I've had bits fall off me, but you kind of lose your bottle a little bit. You don't realise it, but you suddenly realise you're mortal. It's a horrible feeling. I'm sure a lot of young men are listening to this, pumping up in their bedroom, whatever they're doing, listening to us rants. Everyone is mortal. So, but that having that sort of feeling like I've been sent from God, I'm so great, I'm the ultimate alpha male, and you're sort of feeling you're going on a that's what Eddie had and Kaz had for sure. But then Kaz has had a couple of major hamstring injuries, and you just look at Brian Shaw. Did you watch that thing in the Arnold Classic last year? They brought out this stone. People are putting it down as one of the greatest strength feats in history. Kiedyszkowski. It was an odd-shaped stone. I loved it. I mean, I have to bow down to the Arnolds for actually just rolling out an odd-shaped stone and not letting people practice on it beforehand. It's great. It was an intelligence test, everything. But Kiedyszkowski attacked it with the ignorance of youth and the power that it gives you, the belief you can run through a wall. And when Hafthor 2 or 3 years ago, I think you probably would believe he could run through a wall if he really wanted to. Yeah, that's a wild look about him. Anyway, Kiedyszkowski at the Arnolds, a year or two ago, when he lifted up that, unusual shaped stone, everyone before him was failing. His saw was failing. They do some funny systems, but hats off to them, because I love the way they brought out something they hadn't seen before. I think Shaw maybe got it, to his kind of chest height, but didn't quite shoulder it. And then Kiedyszkowski, because he just doesn't care about his biceps, he never hurt his biceps, he probably can't even imagine how you can.
Ironically, he has now.
Well, yeah, there you go. Will he ever win World's Strongest Man now? The first thing, I won't say his name actually, in case Kiedyszkowski gets upset. He phoned me up, said, Colin, I just watched him pop his bicep. It's quite a bad one. I don't think he'll ever win World's Strongest Man. That was his instant feeling, because it knows what it's like to get an injury that suddenly you feel mortal. And that's the mindset's gone, and that's half the battle.
So what happens, not only are you injured, but you're not the man you are. You're perhaps 5 years post-retirement, perhaps you've just retired because you've been forced to. What does that do for you as the alpha when you no longer are one?
Who shouts the loudest at World's Strongest Man? At me. Okay, tournament director. We want 15 weeks of absolute, perfect training. We only really want a powerlifting contest now, Colin. No, we're not. It's World's Strongest Man. It's got to be a bit crazy, a bit wacky. It's the older guys. Always the older guys. Because they're scared. Just say as it is. They're scared. And it's a brutal sport. I read a report by some, university in America that looked at CrossFit, strongman, weightlifting, Olympic powerlifting. Strongman at a reasonably high level has a 5% major injury rate. So that's 1 in 20. Contests.
Major injury.
Yeah, like as in muscle ruptures, tendon popping, leg snapping, whatever, eyeball popping out, whatever Ed did, yeah, prolapsing over this, I don't know, whatever you do, whatever your injury bag is. But yeah, it was something like, I think CrossFit had, I think the study was meant to sort of make CrossFit look, injury-free a bit. But the truth is they were about, I think it was the second highest at about 2% or something. Maybe 1% or something. And then weightlifting and powerlifting were again just below 1%. But see what I mean? Here's another interesting fact for you. Guess how many contests Eddie Hall did in his entire career as a strongman? I mean, I'm talking from the first car park contest.
Hundreds.
I think it's 37.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
From never done it before to retiring. 37.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's Mark Felix's trick? Because the man has been professional for 15 years.
More than that, yeah. I watched his first ever strongman contest in Wolverhampton. That's sort of your neck of the woods,
it
isn't
is,
it, Raz?
mate. Yeah,
Can you do the accent, Wolverhampton?
Wolverhampton, but I wasn't born there, so I don't sound like it.
It was a wet, rainy day in the local leisure centre car park, and I remember saying a kind of gag to the athletes, because there was only 3 people in the crowd or something. I think I said something like, do you know what, folks, I think I'll just introduce the crowd to the athletes. We'll be a little bit quicker today. So give me that $200 still council. What are you kidding? Whatever it was. But Felix, I remember him. Oh wow, what a monster! I was like, where have you come from? Oh, I've been working plastering, and before that I was a cocktail barman. So,
on a cruise ship.
Yeah, so where do you get those big guns from? But I bet you can't do real weights. There's big muscle Mary basically. With those beautiful big arms, and he was like, "No, I can pull some." Well, I voiced Mark, obviously for effect. I'm going high, but yeah, man, I can pull some big weights. And all right, okay. How much do you think you can do with that? 300. I think Glenn Ross was there and strong-armed everyone into doing like 340 kilos for reps. First 10 guys walked out, they couldn't do it. And Glenn went out and did like, I don't know, 6 or 7.
Statically, he was
blood exploding out of his nose, but he loved that. He was looking strong as anything. He was strong as anything. And then Felix, to his credit, went out and not only doubled his amount, because he's almost never been beaten in reps. Even now, he can just rep away just below his max.
It's just Bish. Bish is the only guy to beat him for reps. Ever.
Here we go. You're banging on about Bish again. Was it you and Bish anyway?
Well, me and him, believe it or not, used to train together. We both did skeleton bobsleigh together in his kind of post-rugby career. And so we went to, where was it, Winterberg together, and slid down an ice track, and then fast forward 10 years.
Radzi was a skeleton athlete.
A poor one, a failed one.
Which is, it's sort of like a failed bobsleigh, isn't it?
Oh! It's not like you to mention you're an Olympian, Colin.
No, and of course, bobsleighers have really just failed everything else in the Summer Olympics, or as my son called it, the real Olympics. And I said, it's the winter is also real. Oh, yeah, you're all right, son.
So going back to that notion of retiring and not being the alpha anymore, like, do you think it actually hurts men? Because I've never climbed the mountain. I don't know what it's like to be up there, to be the king. Everyone reveres you. Everyone respects you. You might not necessarily be rich, but like you said about Hafthor, walks into a hotel, everyone's heads turn. What happens when you're no longer that guy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few things, isn't there? If you're a sort of giant killer type, then it probably doesn't bother you as much. I mean, Ahola, you took even Magnuson. I think people are often very disappointed when they sort of meet him to realise he's just so, well, not ordinary, but he just is quite a beefy bloke. I reckon I could take him. You just imagine a few guys going to think of that, But then, he just, any population that rode 3,000 miles with no idea where they were going, with only food and water and a boat, and they're tough as anything, the Icelanders. Those guys just have something weird in their genetics. That guy, he could put a slip on a leather jacket, he'd still be like 145 kilos when he was winning World Strongest Man. You just wouldn't notice it. He just wore his muscles so well.
So is being at the top, then, the best or worst thing that can happen to you for the fall afterwards?
Well, of course, everyone gets a little high on their own supply, I think. That's half the problem, especially if you're Eddie loves to say you're the ultimate alpha male, in Ed's mind, being World's Strongest Man is the greatest thing on earth. And to be honest, I agree with him. Because I kind of feel I wouldn't be doing all this all my life if I didn't love just raw power. I put it up there with intelligence and beauty. Sadly, I had none of them, so I decided to promote one of them. Luckily, no one else had ever really promoted strongman, so it was all right. I got in first. But yeah, it's no one else has ever tried to present it except now you. I'm going to lose on the pretty stakes there. But yeah, so there's two ways. There's short term and there's long term, isn't there? When you get, anyone who achieves a dream in life, no matter what sport you are in, and no matter how not great your dream is. My dream, for example, was just to make an Olympics. Right. And it was because my dad never made one. It was like British hammer champion. 3 times he was, he was, in the year before the Olympics, he was #1 in Britain as a hammer thrower, and then he got beaten in the AAAs. It was a one throw, and each time, twice it was a foreign athlete who'd kind of got British residency. So I was like, wow, it always sort of sat in my mind. He never spoke about it, ever. He never spoke. He never took me hammer throwing when I asked. He just didn't want to. So I always had this thing. I kind of want to right or wrong, but I was totally talentless at most things. You know what I mean? Except weirdly running in a straight line, double bent over, and I just found bobsleighs is great. And that's what I did, just trained at it like mad in a very niche sport. So for me, going to the Olympics was, I dedicated everything to make it there, everything. And I remember coming off the back of that, the first time ever in my life I'd been depressed and went for happy pills.
Is that right?
Yeah. And the thing that made me feel great again, it was Dr. Richard Budgett, who's now the head Olympic doctor for all IOC. He said, Colin, it was 49 of you that went to, not quite the real Olympics, to the Winter Olympics. And he said, it's a month after it, you're not the first through the door already, asking for the same thing. And you won't be the last. Wow, that's quite daunting. So when you get to the very top, you think there's 2 things. Achieving your dream in the short term is unbelievable. If you're a footballer, you've always got the next season, more Mag Daddy cash to earn. It's so easy, but when you're something like a strongman, let's face it, there's not unbelievable money.
Yeah.
We've actually done very well at getting seen and building up, especially of late again. Since the old BBC days, and they got dropped, it's been a hell of a struggle to get it back in. And it could have so easily died. A 5-year shelf life it was given a number of years ago by basically the guy who owned it, and that's no longer. We went from being outside the top 50 shows in Britain on telly to the second highest rated show, I think, in 2017.
Wow.
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I mean, that was a great feeling.
Yes.
And it was basically storytelling, because it's just a great thing, and people love strength. Anyway, luckily I don't do too much of the storytelling. I'd be waffling on all day. Anyway, I get what I'm saying is that guys who reach that zenith in strongman will also lose their size afterwards, as well as chances are be totally buggered up. And in case we can't use that in the podcast, totally knackered. And if you're American, really hurt. Lots of injuries, because we talked about it. So these guys are hobbling. Look at Magnus for Magnus. He needs his whatever they take enzymes out of, I don't know, newborn children or whatever, stem cell. It didn't work in his knees. He's now getting 2 knee replacements at 53 or something.
You know, the funny thing was,
that's awful.
He doesn't look immobile. And I said to him, Maggie, are you in pain? And I'll never forget his response. 2 words: every step. And I said, out of interest, would you change it? He says, what do you mean change it? And I said, would you not do what you did? And he said, well, you make mistakes, that's why you get injured. He said, but would I do strongman? Oh, yeah. And I thought, that is remarkable, because he has to live with that pain every step, but he wouldn't change it. And I was actually relieved when I heard it, because I hate seeing men like that, to go from, like I said, royalty, societal royalty, to then immobile, in pain, atrophying. And that's me witnessing it. What is it like to witness it from your own eyeballs? We'll take something like Steve Redgrave or Matthew Pinson. They, big men, achieved many gold medals at the Olympic Games. Do you think they had the same experience when they finished?
I mean obviously, I was lucky enough to work with Matthew Pinson in the Winter Olympics, and he'd come over and we'd do some chats together. He was great, you know, and we seemed to have gone pretty well. Anyway, he ended up hanging out with us afterwards, me and Paul Dickinson. And in Sochi, was it Sochi or I can't remember. But it was, you know, basically it was one of our 2 Olympic gold medal winning skeleton athletes. I can't remember which one, Amy or. But anyway,
that'd be Lizzie Arnold.
Sochi was Lizzie, yes, you're right. Anyway, I remember sitting on the bus back, and, you know, there's no, like, you know, first class Bentleys driving you around anymore. The old Biby, like it once was with, you know, back in the day for the commentators. You know, there you were on the back of the bus, you know, it's crushed up, an hour journey back to some media village, and Vincent next to me and standing at about 8'6", and he just sort of muttered something under his breath, and it comes to he went, I give it 12 days. Huh? I was like, what do you mean? Okay, 14, she's got a nice family around her. Yeah. I went, what are you talking about? Kind of things. He went, 14 days till the dopamine is totally gone, and she's going to hurt. I went, that was the moment I hadn't actually spoken about my little depression thing to anyone but Dr. Butcher, and I thought, in my own little poxy way, my 21st equal, when we beat Jamaica and Chinese Taipei, might I add, was a magnificent moment of my crappy life. But he had it, 4 times? He won the Olympic gold.
Right.
And he said, I'll tell you what, I really didn't have much of a network at all. I was just such a pervert and obsessed with my rowing. It was a nightmare, because, you know, especially the early ones, you know, I'm not sure, I don't know his exact marital status, maybe he had a wife later, but, you know, when you're a young man, you come back and you're sitting there in your Olympic tracksuit looking in your rented bedroom, that, you know, you got no money and you got no food anymore, and maybe your, you know, $500 a month has now run out as well, and you're thinking, what have I done it all for? And he said, that is, I mean, with the Olympic gold, he said, it's even worse. He said, it's beyond belief, you know. I guess it's like you can take it. When people take drugs, they talk about the come down.
Right.
Not that I've ever taken drugs, kids, so don't do it. But, you know, it's like on a super scale. Imagine me getting slowly high for 5 years, and then, oof, someone turns the tap off. That's it. You walk through the door. I've made it, but there's nothing tangible. At least if you're a footballer and you got a Mac Daddy car, you know, whatever, you got your supermodel wife, and then you got another season of it to go and win it all again. You know, it's
or you walk into a nightclub and everyone says you're the man, and you're getting given things for free. Women are throwing themselves. Even if that doesn't make you happy, at least you've got that to say, this is what it's all about.
I mean, you get a bit of that in someone for sure. I mean, you're never ending kind of, you know, pats on the back whether you want it or not. Just is like, hey, big man, and you know, people can't help but want to touch you, you know. When you're not, I was ever the size, but when around these strong men, you know, So, just a word of advice to anyone who goes up to these really big strongmen around competition time: if they're eating, they have to eat. Just like don't touch the beast when he's eating. These guys get low blood sugar like so fast because of all that metabolic tissue. So yeah, don't expect them to stand up and take a photo. They will do, no doubt, because they're all actually pretty polite guys. The gentlemen are very thrilled that people are, but there's only so thrilled you can be when you're, you got to fuel the Ferrari, you know what I mean? You got to keep it going, and just before competition, it's vital. So, much more so than any other sport in many ways. So
you've been very honest here and answered every question, well, extensively to say the least. I think your brain is remarkable in terms of being able to see something and knowing immediately where it's from. If I were to challenge you now to show you a performance...
I'm not quite sure what you mean. Okay.
I'd love you to look at a performance and tell me who this is and what on earth is happening. Because this clip is something special. Let's see how quickly you can identify it.
You bastard. That guy looks a little like me. That's weird. Who is he?
He's a really good-looking guy. There he goes.
It's my mate. It's my mate Quinn on bongos. He actually steals the show. I grew that mustache for that. That's real. Oh my God. I really thought this had been buried for years, and somehow bloody Brian Shaw found this and dug it out and started putting it all over his YouTube. People, when I walked down the street, even in Britain, hey, Space Cowboy! Like, what? I feel like I've done something embarrassing in the past. I don't think there's anything wrong about this. I was a student at the time, and I was poor, all right? I mean, we all do these things.
What actually is this?
Kai Green pumped a watermelon, right? He was a poor student. I'm not doing that.
Who are those women?
They were my squaws. These girls actually had all been on a Robbie Williams shoot the day before, and then they were on this turkey. Look, if you watch my hands here,
there's no keys of being pressed.
It's a bit more like Gonzo out of the Muppets than it is. I kind of forgot that. It was a hot day. Look, my mustache is slipping off on one side at this point. It's just a total disaster. Yeah, here we go. Watch. That's the single lasso move, and I believe I was the first ever to pull off the double lasso. That's it was mine.
So, how did this come about?
It was big in Bulgaria. It was really, it was a big hit. There is a real artist called Space Cowboy. I mean, he had some big dance hits, and then, and he never went into his videos. And then somehow he made this one. I got paid. Listen, genuinely, I got paid a crate of cider and £100 cash, and I paid tax on it.
It's excellent. It's absolutely excellent.
You can actually date it because I got ever so slightly dodgy teeth from back in the day when I smashed my teeth up in rugby before I got my complete set of falses on Harley Street. Yeah, man, see that? See those broken up teeth? Yeah.
And now you're a promoter. In fact, talking about that, one of the biggest promoters arguably in the world.
In strongman. Probably. Let me think. There's me. There's oh, hang on. Who else is there?
I was going to say Barry Hearn. Have you ever met that guy?
Barry Hearn. Yes. To be honest, I would say he's a mentor without him even realising. I love reading what he's got to say. I think he's a genius. Mr. Woo's in Knightsbridge. It's his favourite restaurant. If anyone wants to try Woo, Barry Hearn, Mr. Woo's. And, me and this other chap who were kind of cooking it up, took him along, and he's a massive bloke, actually. I didn't realise that. It's the first time I met him in person. Not that I've met him in person since. I've been near him and he didn't remember me, but... I got the £300 receipt to prove I took you out for lunch. And anyway, basically, hey, thanks very much. I really love Mr. Woo's. Lovely lunch, I think your idea is... might work in Vegas, kind of like a cabaret, If you've got an audience there, they might turn up, can they? Not for me, fellas. And I mean, he's the Don. I mean, he can, blokes throwing, incredible athletes throwing arrows, darts players. Let's be honest, it's a pub sport. It's not, and that's what it is. And he's rocked it in arenas now because he's cooked up different methods of making it just magnificent fun. And I felt really disheartened. Oh, Barry Hearn can't make this a success. How the bleeding heck am I? But it didn't fully disarm me, or I wouldn't still be here. But but yeah, it was kind of hurt. I really thought, wow. But yeah,
Final thing, I'd love to talk to you about Mike Tyson because I know you've actually met the man. I love boxing.
Do you want to? What was that movie, Hangover?
Sure, yeah.
So
Mike Tyson.
I thought I was going to get in trouble from Felix for my voice if Tyson squeeze your head like a zit berry. When you face him down, I had to interview him, and my pal had basically, by playing on people's egos, had hustled us into the MGM. I've got to be careful what I say, the mafia will get me, if I'm ever back there. There we were in a $5,000 a night suite with brown envelopes of cash, just wedges of cash, to give it the smooth off a few people to do interviews, man. It was great. It was great. I mean, inland revenue was like, I'm talking like per DMs, like £35 a day maximum. But this is what we've been given to kind of, obviously we had to get them signed receipts and all that good stuff, but, just cash money. You're in Vegas, you go to you want Tyson up to your room? Anyways, this guy, fixer of fixers. He just hooked us up, and it was there. We were $5,000 nights. We had a pool table in the middle of our enormous suite with a bar that we were just given free because obviously it was going to be a massive film all over the world. Still, you had to hit the screens. Tyson, dude, I got what a gentleman, what a brilliant mind. Do you know when you just look at someone and people sort of mock him occasionally for, as they call them, spoonerisms or something? Maybe sort of say words slightly wrong because but I just thought, Christ, if this guy had my education, he would be the next Shakespeare. You know what I mean? All that effort I went to all that education and my blessing my parents gave me, to get out with a low-end sports science degree from some shoddy university, drink beer faster than anyone. Tyson's red fury, he was everything. He was you just saw him. His mother had all kinds of. Dad was a pimp for age of 14, taken away from home. He was age of 12. He was a burglar. This guy. There was no learning the classics with this chap. You know what I mean? He was, bless him. He was magnificent. Best thing actually I said to him. That was in the corner. It felt like a hangover, and I had his wedges of cash. Best thing, we got on so well. We actually, I should be careful what I say. And here's the brown envelope, and he was like, "Man, I can't take money for that." Anyway, so we walked to the elevator. I think enough time's passed since this happened. And we were still talking as the sort of doors were shut, and we had like a cuddle and shit. I even said to him, I said, Tyson, I remember you when I was a kid, looking at you staring folks down. You were just a savage, a brute. He went, if you could say this in your Tyson voice, because I can't do it. He just went, what? How fucking old are you? Because they do that in Tyson's voice.
Colin, how old are you, man?
Basically, even though he was like, what? Basically, he looks at me and went, you old bastard, how old are you? You were a kid watching me, is what he said. But then I said, you know what? How old are you, Mike? He was like 50, just turned 50. I think, maybe 49 or something. And I was 41 or 50. Anyway, 6 or 7 years. I said, but you think about it, Mike. I was just a wee fella with a hairless body watching you at age 12 while you were 18 and a half on HBO because I was born in America. I was watching you 6 or 7 years older, and you were an absolute man killer, the biggest man. You were just a man child, you're the youngest heavyweight champion ever at that point. I don't know if anyone's beaten that, but, he's 21, I think he's 21 in a few days. But, yeah. So, we sort of realised actually, because he thought we were sort of people the same age, which we kind of were, but you don't really think of Tyson as the same. Anyway, boring myself now, but you get the idea. We were the hangover, man, with everything. And the best bit is I went back in, and the producer, of course, he still had this brown envelope. I just remember walking in through the massive double doors to our corner suite in the MGM, which was all free. And he was on top of the pool table just going, woo! Throwing all the money in the air. Party! Cheers, Mike. And that was it. I can't remember the next 48 hours. But if you remember Vegas, man, in a corner suite with Tyson, you weren't there.
You weren't there, man. Colin, we are very much almost out of time. However, we line up all of the world's strongest men ever. We have a massive final. Every single man is at their absolute best. We don't know the events. So Kaz is there, Cates is there, John Paul Sigmarsson, Akola, Pujanovsky.
Every WSM finalist ever.
Every winner.
Okay. So how about when a reserve stepped into the final?
Oh, nice. But
no, I'm joking.
you know when Ben Wallace into themselves and an Olympian steps in.
Anyway, right. If you ran 100 events with 100 of the greatest strongmen in history, I would say Hafthor Bjornsson would win.
Okay, another level of
because he has less weaknesses than anybody else.
Does he do it when it matters? Because the one thing that people often say, who's the strongest, but they don't necessarily say who's the most competitive or who raises their game when
the
it
most
counts.
winningest kind of thing. Do you know what? He's been the world's strongest man in the most competitive era ever. So, say no more. You know.
Yeah. Fine, sure.
No. Hafthor Bjornsson. Hafthor Bjornsson, you think about it. I mean, 7 times on the podium, you know. You could say that some of the rulings I'd made as referee at that period, for that whole period, had which is why he built up a sort of conspiracy that I was against him, and I don't, you know, I understand it. All the athletes had it, you know, they all think I was somehow screwing them at the time, because how else in their alpha mind can they not be the champion? And I thought he turned up so big and strong that year, and you know, and
you nearly got into a fight with him.
It wouldn't have been much of a fight. I'd probably had my head pulled off and rammed up my keister. You know, it wouldn't have been much of a fight. If Hafthor wanted to pull you apart, he would do. You know. I can't even pretend it would be like Monty Python, where I'd kind of outrun him, and you know, then he has cardiac arrest. You know, he's fitter than me as well.
Oil yourself up so he can't get a purchase. That's what I'd go for.
Oh my what?
Oil yourself up fully. That's what. So if it's me versus you, I'm thinking, right, if I go full baby oil, you won't be able to get a firm grip.
Anyway, we'll leave that for another time. That hits several markets as well. That's a big one. But anyway, take me back to where we were, Radzi.
So Hafthor, 100 events. For you, he is the most competitive man.
He's got the log press record from 213 kilos. He's in the top 10 of all time in log press, top 6 maybe. You know, I mean, that's a 7-foot man pressing weights over his head. That's not a biomechanical advantage in anybody's book. You know, what's he deadlifted now? Okay, not a bad crack at 500. He might do 501 kilos.
That's just unbelievable stuff. What a great team of warriors, powered by love.
Very hard.
But no one can say that you're not fair, Cole.
So thank you for having me.
No, it's honestly been an insight and a pleasure, mate.
Marvelous. Thank you, sir.
Tidy. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah? That was really good.
It's truly a phenomenal performance. That's just unbelievable stuff. What a great team of warriors, powered by love. You got to enjoy that.